In that moment, all of them became silent. Larry Nelson always said that they were his brothers, but they also knew how much Larry Nelson loved money. He was extremely greedy when it came to money. Between money and themselves, Larry Nelson would definitely choose money. It was just $100K. Were their lives not even worth $100K? They had worked hard and risked their lives for Larry Nelson all these years. But now Larry Nelson couldn't even bear to pay $100K for each of them. Instead, he chose to abandon them.
It can't be, Brother Nelson wouldn't do this. This must be a ploy. Brother Nelson wouldn't abandon us.
The voices grew softer and softer, and they lost confidence in themselves. It was only in times like these that they understood how much they meant to Larry Nelson. Obviously, they didn't mean anything to him. There was disappointment on all the men's faces. Then it quickly turned to despair and fury.
So what do you want to do?
The leader of the pack stared at John with bloodshot eyes as he asked. John was very powerful. Frighteningly powerful. Even if John killed them, they could only blame themselves for being poorly skilled. But they knew that John despised the idea of killing them himself.
Nothing, I just wanted you to face reality. Now you know what you're worth to Larry Nelson, right? You thought that by risking your lives for him, he would cherish you guys? Wrong. He would despise you even more. He would just treat you as tools, throwing you away once he's done using you. You guys have nowhere else to go but to risk your lives for him, so why should he think that any of you is important to him?
John's words pierced the hearts of every one of them. It was difficult to swallow, but every word was true. Their faces became angry, then pale, then angry again. It was true that they gained nothing from following Larry Nelson. After all their sacrifices for him, they were barely making ends meet. No matter how much money Larry Nelson earned, it had nothing to do with them.
I, on the other hand, could provide you a way out. Don't look at me like that, all of you are too useless for my standards. But then since you are all so energetic, it's not a bad idea for you guys to work on this construction site.
Are you insulting us now?
Insulting you? Then tell me, what else do you know how to do? Don't forget, your lives are now in my hands. Each one of you is worth $100K, so you can work here until you've earned $100K, then you can go.
You're willing to let us go?
The leader of the pack was stunned by this. He had gone through many fights in the illegal circles. Once they were in the hands of the enemy, even if they didn't die, they would be incapacitated for sure. John was actually willing to let them go at $100K per person. That was $6.8 million in total.
Once you've earned the $100K, you can go. I won't keep you here even if you want to stay. I'll say it more clearly. Finish building the factory in 2 months, then you can go.
All of them exchanged glances. So John meant that each month of work was worth $50,000?
You trust us. Aren't you afraid that we'd run for it or make trouble or ruin the factory?
You dare to?
It only took one sentence from John. None of them said anything. Before this, they had to work and risk their lives for Larry Nelson, but Larry Nelson earned all the money. Now Larry Nelson had abandoned them, so they were no longer obliged to do Larry Nelson's bidding. Besides, if they offended John, the consequences were very grave. They remembered very clearly that when Howard Hiddleston came, he had respectfully called John Big Boss. If Howard Hiddleston, who was on the same level as Larry Nelson, had to call this man Big Boss, how terrifying he must be. More importantly, he had convinced them after beating them all up single-handedly.
I'll do it. I hope you'll keep your promise. Me too. Bloody hell, I fight for my own freedom. 2 months to earn $100K to redeem my freedom. I'm doing it.
One by one they all started shouting in agreement. No matter what they had to do, it was $50K a month. At least here, they were worth a lot more than before. Right now Elise was having a headache because it looked like they weren't going to meet the schedule.
Can't we hire more workers? If we can't finish the building in 2 months, We can't fit the assembly line on schedule.
It's very hard to find people now, especially since this place is pretty far out.
Mr. Clifford was also having a headache over this. It was expensive to hire workers. But the bigger problem was that few were willing to do this sort of work and couldn't take the work. So he couldn't find anyone at such short notice. Elise was still frowning when she saw that the hooligans from the morning were all walking towards them. She immediately became nervous.
Who untied them?
Mr. Clifford became even paler and anxiously looked around for John. But John wasn't around, who could fend them off now? But the entire group walked right up to Elise and bowed slightly.
Miss Dawson, we will listen to your instructions for the next 2 months and work on this construction site.
Elise was in shock. What did he mean? So they weren't here to make trouble, but they wanted to work on the site? She was just vexed over how she couldn't find enough workers to speed up the building of the factory. And now all these men had come just in time to offer to work on the site. But these men all looked so dangerous and scary, she didn't dare to hire any of them.
We don't need to be paid. We just want to complete the work and regain our freedom.
Elise and the rest were even more stunned. They wanted to work but didn't need to be paid? Work on a construction site was all menial work. It was tough, but they didn't want money, and only wanted to regain their freedom. Elise turned to see John walking over.
John, what's going on?
They want to prove that they can do something else besides fight. You're facing a shortage of workers now, so I told them to come over. Don't worry about hiring them, they won't dare to make any trouble.
If anyone dared to, then they couldn't blame John for turning nasty. Elise still didn't dare to believe her ears, so some of the men just went straight into the site and carried some cement bags in. Once one started moving, the rest of the men moved too. They went asking the other workers what needed to be done, and started work very quickly. At least this way, they just needed to use the next 2 months to repay their debt of $100K. They could get their freedom back and get some pride back as well. Elise watched in confusion as the hooligans who had made so much trouble before were now rolling up their sleeves and working in the hot sun at the construction site. How did this world change so fast?
They really won't make any trouble?
She was most worried that they would cause trouble. The project couldn't afford any further delays.
Don't worry, these people have been abandoned and they want to prove themselves now. They don't have any time or energy to make trouble.
Then about their salary.
Salary? It's already not bad that I didn't ask for money from them.
I will consider the issue of their salary. As long as they work seriously and help to hasten the building. Then we have to at least provide them with food. We can't make them work on an empty stomach.
What a kind woman Elise was. After leaving the factory for home, Elise was still worried. She made several calls to Mr. Clifford to make sure the men were all still working hard before she finally breathed a sigh of relief. But how did John manage to persuade them? All these men were gangsters, and were terrifying if they started to fight. She wanted to ask John, but she could tell from his expression that everything was under control. So she suddenly didn't want to ask him anymore. What was this fellow gleeful about? By the time they reached home, it was dinner time. Mary had already prepared dinner long ago, and was just waiting for Elise and John to come home. At the dining table, John's appetite was excellent as usual. Bill and Mary never really ate very much, but now she had to cook quite a bit every day.
Elise, I heard something cropped up at the factory.
It's all settled.
Dad, don't worry.
Elise put some vegetables into Bill's bowl. She turned to John, who was furiously wolfing down his food. She was glad that he had been around, and thought about whether to put some meat in his bowl as a reward.
It's all thanks to John, right?
Mary put the biggest pork rib into John's bowl before Elise could.
Eat more.
Thanks, Mom.
Who on earth is this person, making things difficult for you again and again?
Bill frowned. John was around, but surely they couldn't always trouble him. Elise shook her head. She only knew that those hooligans worked for Larry Nelson in the illegal circles. But she didn't know who was giving them instructions.
Dad, you know this person very well.
Tell me, who is the one who wants Elise to fail the most?
Bill was stunned as he exchanged glances with Mary. It took a while before he finally uttered.
My brother did this?
That's right, it's Jerome. He's paid a hooligan $5 million to ruin Elise's project, or to ruin Elise directly.
Bill and Mary's expressions immediately darkened and became angry. Anger to the point of fury. How could Jerome have done something like that?
If Elise successfully pulls this project off, then she would have made a huge contribution to the Dawsons. Jerome and Son are definitely not willing to see this day come.
But by ruining this project, the losses to the Dawsons would be tremendous.
So what? The Dawson group doesn't belong to that father and son yet, so if they make losses, so be it.
Bill's face was all red. He knew that what John said was right. He was even more aware that his eldest brother wanted full control of the Dawson group. So he sent their second brother, Nicholas, to Fairbanks to seek expansion opportunities, but that was merely an excuse to send him away. He had found a man to marry into their family so that his own family couldn't compete with Jerome for the business either. If not for the fact that the old man was still alive, Jerome would have made his move much earlier.
He even wants to destroy Elise. That's going too far.
Mary had no interest in any of the Dawsons' assets, but she would not allow anyone to bring harm to Elise.
This will not do. I'm going to reason it out with the old man.
I'll go with you, Mary.
Bill couldn't stand it anymore either. They were brothers, and Elise was Jerome's niece. How could he have found it in himself to do this? He lost all his appetite and pushed his wheelchair to the door. Elise couldn't stop him either. John didn't stop him either. He got Mary to wait at home while he drove Bill and Elise to the Dawson house.
This marks the end of Chapter 32. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel and comment any other novel you would like to be featured here.